Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and I'm going to assume that most people here do not know me, all right? If you already know me, skip ahead, because I'm going to give a quick, maybe not so quick, biography of myself, introduction at the very least, slightly more than an elevator pitch. So, I am going to be talking about Comicsgate here, and to give you an idea of who I am, so you have a better understanding of where I'm coming from, okay, my background, so why I think the way that I think. I am 42 years old. I grew up in a conservative household. So conservative that I joined the military. Only 7% of Americans join the military. You know that? So I joined the military. I joined when I was 17 years old. I was still in high school. Yeah, I'm one of those. And what do you call it? My mother actually had to sign me in. My father, even though he was in the military, would not sign me in, so I had to finagle my mother into doing it. I was like, I'm going to do it anyway. So I figure if you sign me in now, then at least I'll be out earlier. And somehow I was convincing enough that that logic worked on her. So she had the caveat of, just make sure that you're going to be a tank driver. I was like, sure, why? She's like, well, because I think that you'll be safest in a tank. I'm thinking, okay, sure, that makes sense. I was 17, so I was too stupid to understand that would actually make me a bigger target. Either way, it doesn't matter. I am 6'5", and my recruiter, actually, I met my recruiter once. My recruiter's senior NCO, he looked at it as, dude, you realize you're 6'5", you won't fit inside of a tank. I'm like, what? He's like, in the driver's hatch, you won't fit. It's not made for somebody your height. Anyone who's 6'2" or over, sorry. It's like, wow, that kind of stings. Okay, well, I gave it my, my best. Anyway, yeah, he signed me up, and I scored a 132 on my ASVAB, so apparently this was enough to be an officer, but he didn't like officers, so he didn't recommend me for it. It was on the list of things. He handed me this list of things that I should consider going for. And one of the things that was, I saw officer, I was like, how about officer? And he's like, that's boring, you're not going to like it. Don't you want to get out there and actually do things and actually learn something and have fun? I'm like, yeah, I kind of do. So I saw infantry. I'm like, what's that? So I became an infantry soldier. My eyesight was not good enough to maintain it, so I did go to Johnson Hall in Fort Benning. I did go through all that stuff, but then it came back before we moved uprange to, and they say downrange, but you're in the same freaking barracks and everything. Regardless, before I got to move on to infantry, which was just a straight through, we didn't get a break in between. Before I got to move on, my eyesight test came back, and it should have been back before, and well, we let it go, because, whatever. So they said, yeah, your eyesight isn't good enough. Now, by now, I had already qualified with my, in BRM, basic rifle movements, and I qualified as expert. I qualified 38 out of 40. That's the average of what I always did. So the fighting prone position and in the foxhole. Sorry, we're politically correct now. We have to call it a fighting position, just like we can't call it a mess hall anymore. It's a dining facility. Yeah, PC's killing me. It's killing me. And I'm a pretty tolerant guy. So, yeah, so before I could even move up range, sorry, here's a list of the things that you were apparently able to do, so do you want to, still do one of these things? They had my ASVAB right there. I mean, come on, man. So in MEPS, they didn't, yes, I got to go to MEPS. I hear that there is no MEPS now or something like that, or it's not in I'm from New Jersey, so I got to go in New Jersey. Apparently now you had to go to Pennsylvania or whatever, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I went in Jersey. And MEPS, I took an eye test, and in Johnson Hall in retention, I took an eye test. So how it took so long for it to get there, it's probably just military intelligence, the greatest oxymoron ever. Anyway, so they said your eyesight is too bad. I'm like, I qualified expert. I shoot better than, God, 90% plus of the people here, for crying out loud. Who here shoots better than me? Really? And just... yeah, sorry, paperwork is paperwork. You know what I'm saying? You can't shuffle it around forever. It's like, this is freaking ridiculous. So I was so mad at them that I saw one of the things on the list was truck driver. So I was like, you know what? I can't see to shoot, even though I shoot better than most of the people here. put me behind the wheel of a truck. They took me up on the offer. It was because it's military intelligence. So I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and I went to AIT there, and I got my I got my truck driver MOS. So 88 Mike, yay. So what happens? I go to my unit, and what do they say? Immediately, yeah, we're an infantry unit. We don't need you as a truck driver. We need you as an infantry soldier. You can drive a truck whenever you want. So they sent me back. And apparently that's all I needed was a freaking recommendation. So again, I just needed the right paperwork. So I went back and I got my infantry tab. So wow, wonderful. So I am an infantry truck driver in the military. And if that doesn't sound like the perfect country western song, I don't know what does. As long as I got a dog in the passenger side, right? Like, it's perfect. Anyway, so that's my my time in the military, or that's the most interesting part of me being in the military. I served for 6 years. I left and I didn't know what to do. I thought about becoming a cop. I was a police explorer when I was a kid. My family had really close ties with a police chief and everything like that. And I was personally asked to join the police explorers, and I was a Boy Scout at the time, so go figure. It was like I left Boy Scouts to become a police explorer. That was at least fun. But yeah, and then from moving around all over the place all the time, it just, I don't know, things were weird. So I moved around a lot. And comic books were one of the big reasons why I am what I am, because everywhere I moved, at least the comic books were always there. You know what I'm saying? I would move over here, I would move over there, and, you know, make these new friends, make those new friends. And it got, after a while, it's just like whatever. People just became whatever to me. It's like, hey, how you doing? It was easy to make friends that way because nobody matters. Hey, you want to be friends for, like, you know, the couple of days while I'm still here is actually longer than days, but you get the gist, I think. So making friends became like paperwork, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Just shuffle it the right way. Boom, you got friends. But comic books were the one thing that I was able to take with me all over the place, you know, like from constantly moving. Anyway, it was like I was running from the law. So yeah, that was always a huge driver for me. Anyway, through a very funny story that maybe one day I'll get into with the rest of you guys. Some of you guys know this from my my podcast that I do Eastern Standard Time, 8 o'clock on Saturdays. That I became an electrical engineer, and what do you call it? Through working at Lucent Technologies, which was the granddaddy of all throughout the world. I wound up getting pretty good with, I was the test engineer for the first miniaturization of GPS. So instead of, like when I was in the Army, we had these big gigantic devices that were, you know, for GPS to figure out where you are and where you're supposed to go, along with map reading. But we decided to miniaturize them so we could fit them inside of our phones. And I wrote all of the tests and performed, obviously, otherwise where'd I get the data from? All of the test procedures for that. So the drop test, impact test, pressure test, heat test, cold test, the weather tests, and the interference test with all the other CDMA, what do you call it, frequencies that are out there that could possibly interfere with your GPS, because you don't want that. You need to be able to get at least 3 satellite read at all the times in order to get a perfect triangulation. Anyway, and that would be approximately a 12-digit grid coordinate. So that was very, like, we weren't playing around. We didn't decide to go small. We shot big, even though we were miniaturizing something. Anyway, so I was, since I wrote all of the test procedures, I had a really good grasp of what I was doing. And I was asked by the marketing department, hey, could you come and help us out? We need to, you know, figure these things out. They couldn't figure out from my transcriptions, you know, what's going on. They didn't understand how to properly sell or promote the product, excuse me, at the trade shows. If they were asked questions, they were literally dumbfounded. So they couldn't do their job. So they asked me to come and basically do that one part of their job for them. So I did, because it was a new experience. So why not? And I wound up falling in love with marketing. It was so interesting. Like, the trade shows are overwhelming to the senses, you know, and it was great. So yeah, I wound up going to school for engineering. Hey, they were paying for it. And boom, there we are. That's me in a nutshell. Oh, and eventually I wound up leaving engineering because it did just get really repetitive after a while. I left in 2002, almost June of 2002 is when I actually left. Not for good. I did return to the field for a while, but I couldn't get into the same rate because the technology changes just so fast. Every 6 months, no joke, it changes drastically. Anyway, so I went into business. I went into private practice business, and I did a bunch of other things. I got more experience in marketing and whatnot, and actually became a marketer. And I wound up going international. I actually wound up helping, like the pinnacle of what I did was actually, there was a Canadian company and a Saudi Arabian company, and they both wanted to merge into a singular company, like keep their own independence, but then form a united company on top of that, so that they could work, because the reputation of a Westerner, especially an American, but they couldn't find an American who wanted to do business with them. They weren't the biggest company in the world, but I found a fairly big Canadian company who was willing to, well, excuse me, they found a pretty big Canadian company that was willing to, you know, try it out and merge with them, and it worked. I guided them through the entire process. I learned the language pretty good while I was over there doing that. And I wound up traveling all over the Middle East doing that, including parts of, you know, Africa, which is part of the MENA, Middle East, North African area. I actually have a laptop still that I bought while I was over there that says MENA all over, approved for MENA area only, and it's got the Arabic keyboard on it and all that. And anyway. And then finally, the reason why I'm called Professor Bill is I got frustrated with how slow their processes were, because I wrote the process, but their ability to implement the process was really, it was snail's pace, and it just, no, I was fast paced, and I just wanted to do more. So I already arranged a partnership in Egypt for them to start doing work over there. And I just took a meeting in Kuwait City, Kuwait, in order to do stuff over there. And nope, nope, while I was there, they're just like, you know, I'm telling them, like, dude, there are people who are seriously interested in what we're doing. And they're like, okay, wow, you were just supposed to get a feel. I was like, yeah, I got a feel. I got a feel that they want to do stuff now. So look, we can do this. They're willing to do this on credit. And they were just too afraid to move that fast. So I figured, okay, well, that's what I do. I'm about the venture. So if you're not ready to continue venturing, call me when you are. And I actually didn't answer calls from that point on. So while I was already over there, I met a lot of people who were trying to learn English more. And since I'd gotten a good grasp of Arabic, and I became really conversational on the street level, it made it easy for me to transition into being a teacher of English as a foreign language over there. So I started off teaching the 3rd grade over there. Yeah, English, math, science, social studies, and mechatronics. Don't get too, you know, like, whoa, mechatronics. It's just a glorified version of Legos for 3rd graders, which it's like build this specific device that can move. So more of the mechanical aspect of engineering. Anyway, I was quickly approached by the Saudi Electronic University, who we had done business with, and they said, listen, if you're doing teaching now, we would love to have you over here. Can you help us out with, you're already teaching English as a foreign language. Do you think you could also do technical transcription and explain the symbols that are used in engineering? I was like, yes, I absolutely can. Sign me up. So that's where I got the name Professor Bill. So yeah, and it just worked really well with the channel. My wife actually suggested I was going to do a completely different theme for my channel. And, she says, no, do Comic Book University, because you are Professor Bill. I'm like, okay, yeah, that actually sounds cool. So, da-ding. Anyway, that's 14 minutes of me talking about where I came from and how this all happened. So, I felt that this is important because, again, I feel that this, I'm going to have to put Comicsgate hashtag and Movetheneedle hashtag and all sorts of different things like that in my description so that people understand what they're getting when they look into this video and when they do a search for this and they find me and I figure that a lot of people are not going to know who I am when they're looking at this video. This may very well be the first video that you ever do. In fact, Chris Claremont, I think it was in the back of Wolverine Volume 2, issue number 10, the readers section. Somebody had complained, one of the people who wrote in had complained and said, yeah, I love Wolverine, I love what you're doing, this is great, I love seeing him solo, this is amazing, very different from, you know, when Frank Miller was doing this, like, you know, this is just amazing, wow. I have one complaint. You don't have to start off every single issue with, I'm the best there is at what I do, but what I do ain't very nice. Like, you know, we get it, don't overuse it. So a response came back. I don't remember if it was Chris Claremont himself who said this, probably not. He was probably too busy writing other things, but whoever it was, whether it was Claremont himself or the editor, he'd said, the thing is, we do kind of have to do that because every single comic book that we put out, every comic book, is somebody's first comic book. And we want them to be ingrained the right way into who Wolverine is. So that made sense. It made sense. Because I actually did start to get annoyed with reading it every single issue. But at the same time, I got used to the idea, oh, that's the one, skip over it, go to something else. I don't have to be obsessive and read everything compulsively. It's unnecessary. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it was an easy fix and it taught me something. You know what I'm saying? So many different life lessons I learned that prepared me for learning about marketing. So, Comicsgate. I'm going to make some criticisms on every side that I can imagine. And I'm going to tell you that I am also going to do something that I haven't seen so far. Has it been done? I don't know. But I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to make suggestions how to fix this. And not with being snarky. Like actual actionable ways to fix a problem. I grew up with the idea of don't come to me with a problem, come to me with a solution. And these are golden words, baby. These are words that, you know, transcend into divinity right there. Don't come to me with a problem, come to me with a solution. You know, otherwise you're just a complainer. So, yeah, there's that. Anyway, I don't know everything there is to know about Comicsgate. I just don't. I'm not going to claim that I do. I don't claim I know everything about comic books. I just don't do that. I'm not here to lie to anybody or to try and pass myself off as somebody that I'm not. So I'm not an expert in anything. Sometimes I call myself a jackass of all trades. You know what I'm saying? It's fun. Try it. Anyway, so I know almost nothing about Gamergate, which is apparently where this name came from. The only thing I know about is what I've seen other people say about it. So everybody said something different about it. So I simply, instead of saying, well, I know this and this and this and this and this about it, but all these things seem to contradict with something else at some point or another, I'd rather just say, yeah, I don't know anything about it. Because I think that a lot of the people who are talking about it don't know about it either. And I'm not a gamer. I'm not a gamer. You know what I'm saying? I'll play a mobile app game once in a while that has to do with Marvel or DC, but I'm not getting into, you know, an elaborate video game anymore. I haven't done that forever. And sometimes I wish I could, man. I miss playing Skyrim. I love that. But, you know, I got too many other things going on in my life. I don't sleep enough as it is. Okay, so with this Comicsgate, I'm seeing, my understanding of it is that people, by people I mean consumers, this is a pretty big word here. We are a capitalistic society. That's not going to change. I live in Canada. I live in the GTA. I live in Mississauga, Canada. And yeah, even though Canada is considered socialist, there is way more capitalism here than there is socialism. Free healthcare with our much cheaper taxes. You know what I'm saying? It's a beautiful thing. Man, as a veteran, I should get that. You know what I'm saying? But I think that every American citizen should get this. We pay more than enough taxes. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. That being the case, capitalism, man, it gives you a level of freedom that I think a lot of people just really don't understand, because you can control the market with your dollar. The question is, are there enough people who are willing to do the same thing? You know, we can sit here and complain that, you know, oh man, Toys R Us is being put out of business. You know what I'm saying? Because they owed so much debt. But they were making a profit. It's just, it is what it is. But when we look at something like Amazon, that's putting a lot of people out of business, or Walmart, that has put out so many people out of business. You know what I'm saying? It's one of the main reasons for the collapse of Kmart. The other half of the reason for Kmart's collapse is they didn't know how to grow with the times. So it is what it is. Stay stagnant. There you go. Don't pay your employees. There you go. Even Walmart's learning from that, and they're raising the salaries of some of their employees. But that being what it is, we have everybody's complaining, oh, Walmart's putting people out of business. Yeah, well, you know what? We have the power to put Walmart out of business. Don't buy their stuff anymore. The trick is, can enough of us do that? Because if I do that by myself, that's not going to mean anything. So this goes to a similar kind of case with what's going on in the Comicsgate situation. There are people who want to boycott Marvel, or at least certain titles, whatever. I don't know, it is what it is. And they're making lists, and, you know, don't buy from these artists, or excuse me, these writers at the very least. I can see that don't buy from certain artists also, man. There was the guy in X-Men Gold issue 1 who excuse me, who just, like, that was pitiful, man. That was pitiful. But it is what it is, you know, and now he's gone. He's ostracized. Bye. So our dollars did something with that. But at the same time, there was, like, it was more of a political social upheaval that did it. It wasn't dollars that did that, right? Because people went out crazy and tried to buy that because they're like, oh, dude, I got a whole bunch of these issues. Look, first prints and everything before they changed everything. Look at that. Wow. People who want to protest body counts. Anybody remember Body Count? I'm old. Body Count was a band created by Ice-T, who was the originator of gangster rap. And what do you call it? He wanted to venture into heavy metal also. Body Count was pretty good, man. They had some good songs. I dug them. And they did this one song called Cop Killer. And there were people who were uprising and upheaval. Just, rah, how dare you? How dare you? I can understand the upheaval back then, pre-internet. You know what I'm saying? Pre-social media, pre-videos of cops executing people, all right? Just all races, nationalities, ethnicities. I don't like saying races. Human race, baby. Sexual orientation, whatever you want to say. Like, there's people who are given a badge and a gun and not giving the proper training. Like, listen, 6 years military, all right? I spent most of my time in the military training, okay? And today, I can't find a police academy anywhere. You know what I'm saying? You want to learn how to become a cop. I know plenty of guys in the military who became cops, and they told me flat out, what is training? Training is you're partnered with this guy who's been in the force for a long time, and he's going to show you the ropes. That is not cool. Imagine if that was university. Imagine if that was university. You know what I'm saying? Oh, you want to learn about economics? Cool. Here's this guy who's been doing economics for a long time. Just hang out with him for a while, and you know you'll learn about it. That's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. So why am I talking about this social issue? Because it matters. It is a part of this conversation. When we look at what is happening in the comic books world right now, how do I explain this? Okay, you know what? I'm going to go back to my English education, meaning in grammar. We all have training in English if we speak English, right? But as a native speaker, we just don't care. we all speak in past tense participle and and future participle, whatever. But we don't actually know. If I were to tell me something in use a word, or you give me a sentence in the past participle. You know what I'm saying? You'd say what? But if I were to give you the example, you could do it without any kind of a problem. While you may not understand how to use the term, I have climbed a mountain as opposed to I will have climbed the mountain, you know the inherent difference because you speak the language natively. But someone who doesn't speak the language natively needs to be told why this is the case. And just coincidentally enough, everything that has to do with English grammar revolves around time, past, present, future. So, and in other languages, that's not how the grammar is based at all. So, yeah, learning different languages is a way to think in a different format. Anyway, so I look at what comic books were in the past, and I look at what comic books are today. Back in the day and today, the same stories are being told. They're being recycled sometimes even, like they're that blatant, but the same kinds of stories are being told. There's some kind of a social problem, and whoosh, this is how we're going to fix the problem. This is how I'm going to overcome my problems, right? That seems to be the big thing here. Everybody's talking about the hero's journey. It just doesn't exist anymore in comic books. The stories, they're not proper allegory anymore. They're not, or at least they're not allegory with metaphors anymore. They're allegories with similitudes. So allegory is, in case you don't know, sorry. And if you do, yeah, there's the sorry. Allegory is a story that involves metaphor. Metaphor is likening one thing with another, but in a roundabout way that you may not understand what it, or you may not understand. You may not get that it's a metaphor. So case in point, if I were to say to you, as one native speaker to another, my wife is a peach. In fact, she's a perfect angel. You get what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying. You can already liken the soft, fuzzy feel of a peach because she's really hairy. She's not here, right? Because I'm gonna get my butt whooped. Anyway, just the nice soft. You go into a store, you just sit there and just rub a peach because man, peaches just feel cool. You know what I'm saying? And they taste sweet. You know what I'm saying? Who doesn't like peaches? All right. Anyway, and a perfect angel. You get that. It's like, oh, she can do no wrong. You know what I'm saying? She's perfect. So we get that. But this is an idiom. All right, this is something that is understood in the language that we use, and every single language has an idiom. Case in point, in Arabic, they'll use, if somebody does something that is a little bit sneaky, you'll say, and that's where and that's when they put the poison in the honey. Now, if I were to say, if you were to give me a story and I would be like, that's where he put the poison in the honey. It's like, you look at me like, what the hell are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? Where that comes from, really quickly, is tea is huge in the Middle East. It's huge in a lot of places, right? But tea is huge in the Middle East. So if you've got diplomats or leaders talking with each other, you're going to serve tea, and you're going to have people who are going to test the tea, right? They're going to the taste testers. Every single country, every single president, whatever, has a taste tester. Everybody has them. Our president has one. What do you call it? It's necessary for every single president, king, leader, whatever, prime minister. So poisoning somebody's tea would be stupid. It would be stupid. Poisoning somebody's cup would be stupid because the taste tester is going to be like, "Ugh," and die. You know what I'm saying? It's like, aha! I see what you did. But what do you call it? The idea is that you're going to taste the tea. Okay, the tea is good. So now you're going to put in whatever condiments you got. In America, it's like, milk and sugar, right? Something like that. But in the Middle East, and specifically this is an Egyptian idiom, everybody puts in honey. So today it's mostly sugar. You know, I'd seen them spoon in all that sugar. It's like, oh my God, would you like some tea with your sugar? Anyway, so they would pour in honey back in the day. So you taste test the poison, the tea. You taste test the cup, but then when you determine, okay, there's no poison there, that's when you make the tea to your taste by putting in your honey. Everybody takes honey. So you don't poison the tea, you poison the honey. So you see there's the idea of the trickery, there's the deceit. That's how, in America, we would say, that's how they get you, right? Every single thing that you do, oh yeah, man, I went to the store and blah, 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 but then they charge me for, you know, this hidden price and whatnot, and the other person, what are they going to say? That's how they get you. So the similitude to that would be in Egypt when they say, so that's how they poisoned, so that's why they poisoned the honey. You know what I'm saying? So that's where it comes from. You know, all the idioms that we have. What do you call it? Why buy the cow when the milk is free? We know what that means. But somebody from you know, China is going to be like, why'd you get free milk? I don't understand. How'd you get free milk? So that's an idiom. All right. So if I were to use the idiom as I suggested, my wife is a peach. In fact, she's an angel. Somebody from India is going to look at me like, so let me get this straight. Your wife is a piece of fruit from a tree in heaven. That's what you're saying. You married a fruit. So this must be, what do you call it? A metaphor for something, right? Because what? Like they're not going to get that. And it is a metaphor, but they're not going to understand what that metaphor is. It's just going to sound weird, especially if it's coming in a broken language, you to them or them to you, however it's transmitted. So, comic books used to be metaphor, all right? The X-Men. Another big one is Superman, all right? Superman was too powerful, man. Like the people who don't read Superman, they're all just like, oh, Superman's too powerful. He could beat up all of his problems. Well, he could beat up the people who are in front of him. But there's a reason why his most powerful, his greatest arch nemesis is not Darkseid. It's not Brainiac necessarily, even though Brainiac does pose one heck of a problem. What do you call it? But it's, you know, it's actually, you know what? Let me take that back. It is Brainiac. Brainiac is one of his big nemesis. But what do you call it? Somebody like Doomsday is not necessarily a big nemesis anymore. Yet nowadays he treats Doomsday like he's a punk. You know, it was just that one first issue where he got killed. The first appearance, which I just got. It's one of my grails, and I just got it again yesterday. I just bought a new one yesterday. Anyway, his big nemeses are people like, what do you call it, Brainiac, like Lex Luthor, you know what I'm saying? Like Mr. Mxyzptlk, you know what I'm saying? People who he can't just punch in the face, you know what I'm saying? Parasite, Metallo, and people like that. Yeah, they've got certain, you know, weaknesses against him, and they exploit these weaknesses, and they give him a little bit of a challenge. But his real challenges come from the mental dilemmas that are put in front of him, or even the social ones. This guy is an illegal alien, all right, who came to this earth not with permission, all right, and he's got the Moses story, for crying out loud. And he comes here and he learns the American values in the heart of America, right in Kansas, baby. And he's trying to, you know, he got very lucky. He found these parents. Look at some of the Elseworlds comics. Things don't go so well when he doesn't have Jonathan and Martha Kent teaching him how to be a human, how to be a man. Excuse me. So he's got very different kinds of problems. He does have social issues that he's dealing with. He's trying to bring out the best in humanity. He's basically like it's like what Captain America does, except Captain America also has to deal with the physicality of things because he can't just muscle through everything. Yeah, he's got the super soldier serum that helps him get through all the mundane stuff, but he's still got to deal with people who he can't necessarily just punch in the face to get rid of their problems. And that's something that's said about Captain America a lot. Can't just punch this problem in the face. Do you know how many times Captain America's had to get by without being able to just punch his problems in the face? A lot. It's one of the reasons why he's my favorite character. You know what I'm saying? But back in the day, there was a lot more of the metaphor than there was of the similitude. Okay, so the metaphor is what do you call it? You know, here's this big problem. Just think of anything with the X-Men. You know, here's this big problem, and you know, there's racism, or there's sexism, or there's what do you call it? Homophobia. You know, or any kind of a phobia in the LGBTQ community. You know what I'm saying? There's just all the different kinds of problems you could possibly imagine, but they were all called mutants, right? They're all called mutants. All the pejoratives that you could think of to attack another human being, to, you know, call them any kind of a derogatory name. Marvel had a word for that. It was mutie. That's the easiest thing in the world. You know, what are you, some kind of a mutie? They would even say, are you some kind of a mutie lover? We know what that actually means, dude, but they're not actually saying it. So there's that shift in power where, yes, we understand what you're saying, but you're not giving it a direct message. So while make no mistake, and that is a metaphor in allegory, but there's also similitude. And it can't really be called allegory quite the same way anymore. A similitude is literally saying, this is that. Like, there's no innuendo, there's no subtlety whatsoever. It's just, you know, this guy's a Muslim, and this guy is a Christian, and they're attacking the Muslim guy. This is okay. Once in a while. All right? This worked back in the days, all right? Not everything was MGH. Remember back in Marvel they used to, and they still do, the mutant growth hormone? What was mutant growth hormone? It was drugs, man. It was every kind of drug you could possibly imagine. Sometimes those stories worked, like when Stan Lee said, you know what, I'm going to run a comic book without the Comics Code Authority on it because, you know what I'm saying? We were asked by the current administration to run an anti-drug campaign. So they made an issue of Spider-Man without it, and boom! And all of a sudden, that was pretty much the beginning of the end for the Comics Code Authority. You know what I'm saying? There was also time with the Secret Empire. No, not the most recent one by Nick Spencer. No, where Tony Isabella and all those other guys were working on it, and it turns out that Nixon was actually the head of the Secret Empire. All right, that was very political, and that worked. That worked. It was weird, but it worked. Everybody looked at it like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Oh my God, they like literally pointed out this guy. You know what I'm saying? They literally pointed out this guy. Sometimes it works. Other times, you got to do it with metaphor. Because when you do it too much, it doesn't work. I'm going to give you an example. Captain America, Streets of Poison. I'm sorry, who really thought, who, when they were reading comics, ever thought that the super soldier serum was steroids? I never once imagined, I never once looked at it as, even though it's said many times, oh yeah, it's a combination of steroids and this and that and the other thing. I've always known that, what do you call it, steroids, there are the illegal ones, but then there are the legal ones that everybody continues to use to this day because they're used in physical therapy and things like that. I was inundated in that stuff. I understood that stuff. You know, I was in track. You know what I'm saying? I ran track for long, and I also did, so I did track and field. I also did the shot put and the discus. You know what I'm saying? I was horrible at throwing the javelin. Stunk it up, so I never did that. But track and field, yes, you know what I'm saying? So when, you know what I'm saying, when they start saying, you know, oh man, like when Captain America's running, go, I don't need the steroids, I don't need them. I'm just like, this is the worst Captain America comic I've ever read in my life. What is happening here? So I was, oh, wow. And if we needed a reason to hate Hank Pym even more for being a wife beater, in this one, he's complicit in the idea of, well, yeah, they are drugs, but, you know, they're keeping you alive. You sure you want this blood transfusion? So, oh, man, it was horrible, dude. It was horrible. So sometimes it works, man. Sometimes you get Streets of Poison. It is what it is, you know? Now, I'm going to remind you, I'm 42 years old. I'm kind of old here, right? And I like to call old people moments, some people call them senior moments. not necessarily. Don't have to be a senior for that. I call them VCR moments, because when I was growing up, the big joke about our parents was they don't know how to program a VCR. They can't even set the time of a VCR. You know what I'm saying? It's like the easiest thing. We're like, you hold down this button, you hold down, and then you do this button, then you move over to this button, and then you let go, and boom, you're done. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever the little process was in order to set the time, to set the clock on your VCR, instead of having the big flashing thing all the time, you know? Like, nobody wants that. So you'd always make fun of your parents. You can't even program VCR. Nowadays, there are more VCR moments than ever for us as adults. You know what I'm saying? So unless you actually work in computer program or something like that, like even as a guy with an electrical engineering background, I can't keep up with the modern tech. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, dude, come on, man. So I don't follow Twitter. I don't do Twitter that well. You know what I'm saying? I'm not very good on the tweeter machine, okay? You know, I'm good enough with the YouTubes. Anyway, no, I'm not quite that bad. So yeah, I'm on Twitter and I do stuff like that, but I see what I see as I see them. All right. And I don't follow a whole lot of people because I just, you know, like there's certain people, it's like, oh, I like what this guy's doing in the comics, so I will follow what this person is doing. Cool, man. I like, you know, what this fellow YouTuber is doing, so, you know, I'm going to follow this person also. And, you know, and it's a really easy way to follow somebody and they follow me. And now you can do private messages back and forth. It's like, that's cool, man. That's really cool. Now it's like, you know, nobody can see what we're doing. it's like the can to each other's ear with this string in between it. And I'm not that old. I actually had walkie-talkies when I was a kid. So I never got the idea of the string and cans thing. So anyway, I'm seeing what's happening on Twitter. It's mostly on Twitter, but you know, obviously all of that's just to bring it back to the videos on YouTube where people can actually monetize the speech that they're using. Now, first, a quick commentary on freedom of speech. I remember I was in a movie theater with my girlfriend one time, and there was this dude who was on his phone. I'm cool with it because it's just the, you know, the opening things. And then the trailers came on. I'm like, okay, this guy's going to wrap it up pretty soon. You know, we are in a social environment where everything is a social environment, and most people understand the social norms, and maybe they need a little reminder, like a little, you know what I'm saying? Or just, you know, a quick glance, you know, something like that, you know? The little social cues that we give off that you're not conforming to the social world very much. And dude, nonconformists sound really cool, but no. Nonconformists for the social norms are literally, this is what we call a sociopath. You know what I'm saying? That's what that's where all that comes from. They don't get the social norms and the cues and the hints and all that. I probably should have mentioned that I started a community college in correspondence in psychology. I didn't like it, and I transferred those credits and finished an associate's degree in sociology instead. So that's where I'm getting all of this from. But so this guy's just not getting the social cues. He's not getting the idea that you're in a public place, dude. You're in a movie theater specifically. It's time to turn off your phone, or at the very least, get off your phone. So the movie actually gets ready to start. Like, start seeing the opening credits and all that stuff. And I looked over at the guy and I'm like, hey, brother, sorry, just movie starting, eh? That's it. And he looks at me, he's like, hold on. And he looks at me, he's like, yo, man, I got freedom of speech. And he just looks at me. And he knows social cues because he looks at me a little bit more like he's going to, you know, beat me up. And then just goes back to talking on his phone. I didn't respond back right away because I'm thinking, is this guy really that stupid? Or does he just think that I'm really that uneducated? So I'm just like, okay, let's have some fun with this. I'm like, excuse me, sir, hi, it's me again. Sorry, by freedom of speech, I don't really understand what you mean, because we all have freedom of speech, but we also have certain social norms that we follow, and there are also still individual rules. Case in point, I have a rule, don't touch me. You know what I'm saying? And most of us have that rule. Now, that's not something that's necessarily enforceable by the law. If somebody bumps into me, it's like, not cool. But I do have my own, rule for that, and I'm able to express that. This movie theater also has its own rules. No cell phones when the movie's on. So, you kind of have to turn that off. He's like, no, I don't. I was like, actually, you do. And if I go and let somebody know, then you are going to be removed. I mean, just make no mistake about that. And if you think that your freedom of speech is somehow going to help you out with that, I've got a suggestion for you. I want you to stand up and at the top of your lungs scream out, fire, 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 freak out, fire, 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 like that a lot. Go, full Beavis on this guy or on all of us, all right? And cause a panic. And then when you get arrested and thrown in jail, I want you to actually try and use your freedom of speech comment on them, because it's not going to work. Not all speech is protected under the First Amendment, and starting a riot, inciting a riot, or causing an unsafe condition by your words is not protected under freedom of speech. Sorry. So I'm going to need you to turn off your phone right now. So he just stares at me, and he's like completely bewildered, like totally perplexed. He has no idea what's going on. And he's like, he gets up and he like stares at me a little bit more. Yeah, I know. Go ahead. You got to get your whole intimidation process down. If I stood up, I want to remind you, I'm 6'5". I've been trained in the martial arts since I was 8 years old and 6 years in the military. God, I almost wish he would have tried something. That would have been great. You know what I'm saying? It's like, now I'm going to whoop your butt. So I just, beat you intellectually, and I'm going to beat you physically. Realistically, what can I prove that God doesn't exist to you and really mess you up spiritually also? Like, what else do you want me to do to you? Anyway, I don't have a problem with people believing in God. I actually believe in God also. I'm just not a big conformist with religion. So anyway, that being said, he just he turns around and he walks towards the back of the theater. It's like, good, finish your call someplace else, dude. Like, this isn't your freaking office. Anyway, so, yeah, freedom of speech, I get it. But there's also the necessity to be responsible with speech. Case in point, freedom of speech doesn't protect you with hate crimes, okay, or hate speech very specifically. And a lot of what we say can be derived as hate speech. Case in point, if you threaten to beat up someone, this can be considered not necessarily hate speech, but this is considered a threat, and you can actually get in trouble for that. Now, make no mistake, if somebody walks up and gets right up in my face, all right, I can tell them, I'm going to need you to back off of me, okay? Stand your own ground or not, whatever. The idea is I can tell someone, I'm going to need you to take a good long step back. Now, you need to take that walk of shame, and you need to back off. Now, you got in my face, now you get out of my face. You know what I'm saying? And somebody says, what are you going to do about it? I have the legalized right to say, I'm going to twist your freaking neck until I hear a pop. I have the right to say something to that effect. You know what I don't have the right to say? I'm going to twist your neck until I hear a pop. You effing add the pejorative that you want. Okay? I could say dirtbag, whatever. But if I say something that is homophobic, if I say something that is considered racial, if I say something that is considered sexist even, now we're in the realms of hate speech. And unfortunately, women aren't as protected as the LGBTQ community or ethnic groups, ethnic minorities. But this is not protected under freedom of speech. Now you're delving into a hate crime. That's the way the legal system works, all right, for better or worse, and I believe it's for the better. Because the only thing you can really do with threats or anything like that is to determine intent. So if I were to say, yeah, he said something to me and I said I was going to break his neck, this is a threat and I'm going to get in trouble for that. But if I say it as a deterrent for having to hurt someone because it looks like they're about to hurt me, yeah. Where I get into a problem with cops is they have the right to shoot you if they're afraid of something. They can't just simply say, get away or I'm going to shoot. No, they can actually shoot you and get away with it. I have a huge problem with that. So I am neither left nor right. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to say things that are going to tick off both sides and deal with it. You know what I'm saying? I have the right to say these things and you have the right to be offended. That's the way it works. And I'm not trying to offend anybody. That's the funny thing about this. The problem is with Comicsgate and the intended victims, they're both, and Comicsgate in some ways are victims also. Just look, I'm not taking a side on this. Both people are using hate speech. You know what I'm saying? The Comicsgate side seems to be more about it, but I do see it also from the what do they call? I actually had to write down this name because I'm not the, what are they, comics creators? The comics, oh, for crying out loud. Comics pros, there we go. The childish comics pros. Yes, I have. I apologize for that break in the film. My the storage on my phone I've completely filled up, so yeah, I had to transfer it and now I'm back. Anyway, so yeah, I see it on both sides. All right, I see the so-called comics pros, the people who are actually writing these comic books, some of the editors, perhaps, whomever, you know, saying the things that they're saying, and it's, yeah, it is immature, but it's immature on both sides. But I'm going to get into where the original problem seems to have started. In my opinion, my understanding of the way this works is it did start with Marvel, and it started long before now. It started in the 90s. Look, anybody who grew up, and I was a teenager, I had just started high school, you know what I'm saying, in the 90s, and crying out loud, man, when I used to go to the comic book store, I used to be in love with going to the comic book store, but after a while I started to get a little bit tired of getting some of these comic books because I felt like I needed to collect a lot of these. You know, at the time, there was a huge debate amongst people who used to play sports all the time, which is cooler, baseball cards or comic books, you know what I'm saying? And it turns out that comic books didn't resell for as much as baseball cards did. It's because there were more fans for sports cards and you know, but the comic book guys be like, well, comic book stores, at least you could read a cool story, you know what I'm saying? It's just, yeah, it's, who cares? It's all collectible memorabilia. Who cares? Why are we comparing, you know, wand sizes on that regard? Plus, I collected baseball cards and football cards. Nobody cared about the football cards at the time, at least. I collected those too because I used to go out and play baseball. I used to, not, you know, for school, but, you know, my own. I used to actually sit and watch baseball. Yeah, I could actually sit and watch baseball. I loved baseball. You know what I'm saying? What do you call it? So... Jeez, I used to see the crazy stunts that Marvel would do. And again, just one of the things that I guess drove me into getting into marketing was seeing the bad practices that Marvel was doing, all right? The first variant cover was that Man of Steel cover where they made a single variant cover. You know what I'm saying? They had that cool Superman cover, then they had the close-up of just the S on the chest. I probably should have worn that instead of a Punisher shirt today, right? But I didn't know I was going to talk about that. Anyway, I just talk from the heart, man. That's it. I don't prep for all this stuff too much except writing down some words that I think I'm going to need to remember so that, yeah. I see that people, you know, or what do you call it? People started getting into the idea of that variant cover. So what did Marvel do? Marvel saw what DC was doing. And Stan Lee isn't writing for them anymore, and, you know, Jack Kirby isn't drawing for them anymore, and, you know, Jack Kirby actually just died, like, the year before. You know what I'm saying? So they're all at, like, no, oh my God! You know what I'm saying? What are we gonna do? And Jim Shooter was in charge at this point, you know, like the, what do you call it? The New Universe had come out a couple years before, and it failed miserably. Because it wasn't in a very good executable plan. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't sell the idea to the writers. He thought that, I'm the boss, you're going to do what I say. Well, that's not actually how the world works, and you are going to get dissonance, and they have every right to complain about it. The New Universe could have worked if he could have explained his story better to the creators. And if the creators would have bought the story in their minds, and they could have delivered it. How do I know? Look at the success of the Ultimates universe. And then look at how it failed. Look at why it failed. All of this is because people just, they believed in something, then they stopped believing in something. But Marvel is a type that something works, whether they did it or not, and they jump on it. Ultimate Spider-Man was a brilliant book by Brian Michael Bendis, man. And it wasn't meant to be a start of a whole new world. It was just supposed to be an alternate take for Spider-Man and just, you know, the world and all these different things in there. And then Marvel was like, this is really successful. Let's make Ultimate, you know, this and Ultimate that and Ultimate that. And some of them were good, and some of them were Ultimate Fantastic Four. I said it. I said it. You know, Doctor Doom with hooves. There's no explanation why, man. So some of the stuff worked, some of the stuff didn't. And it wasn't explained very well. You know, Ultimate this, Ultimate that, Ultimate this, Ultimate that. Did it make sense for us to wait for 18 months for Ultimate Hulk versus Wolverine to come out, Part 3 to come out after that ridiculous cliffhanger in issue 2? Did that make sense? That made me crazy. That made me crazy. And that was when I'd returned to comics, you know? Dude, the Clone Wars. But first off, just the variants, okay? With the variants, that was the first time I really noticed it. They made these variant covers. And like X-Men, you think about it, man. Death of Superman was like, whoa. So DC would do something like that also. Let's change some things. Let's change up Batman. You know what I'm saying? Let's make Azrael. Didn't take, did it? You know, let's make Green Lantern evil. Yeah, it didn't really work too well, did it? It made for some good plot points later, but immediately, nope. Who liked Kyle Rayner? You know what I'm saying? I like him now because Hal Jordan told me he's the torchbearer, and they did it in a good way. They did it in a very intelligent way, and I dug it. So it's like, okay, cool, but there's still a lot of people like F. Kyle Rayner. It's hard to blame them. But DC did try, and when they realized that there was a problem, like, okay, let's fix this. You know what I'm saying? So everybody's going to try different things, but just because something works one way doesn't mean that you can keep throwing it artificially at us the exact same way. It's never always going to work because you're going to try hard on the first one, and the second one you're going to get lazy. The second through 5,000th you're going to be very lazy on. You know what I'm saying? And Marvel's done that over and over again with the variant covers. You know, the fall of the comic book world was the X-Men issue number 1. This is volume 2, right? Issue number 1, they had those 4 variant covers, and they didn't say they were variant covers. And I remember a lot of people went and bought. I looked inside and I saw, oh, cool. You know what I'm saying? But I thought I kind of should buy all 4 of them, shouldn't I? Because I want the whole interconnecting cover thing. And then when I realized, like, I'm not going to rip up my covers, you know what I'm saying? I'm not going to take the covers off. These things are going to be worth something in the future. Because DC was also partially responsible with that, with the closed cover, like the one I just got, you know what I'm saying? And then the open cover so you can actually read the comic. And you know how long we went? Do you remember how long, if you're my age, do you remember how long we went before someone finally said, okay, that's it. I can't take it anymore. I'm opening up this darn black bag and I'm going to see what's inside this Death of Superman cover. You know what I'm saying? And there was the armband and all that stuff. I found out from somebody else. But like, I remember my mom knew that this was going to be something. And before I could even go up to the comic book store myself, she bought me 10 copies. She bought me 5 of the unbagged and 5 of the bagged. Like, Mom, if you were smart, you would have bought 9 of the bagged and 1 of the unbagged. You know what I'm saying? If either of us were smart, we would have gotten the one that we wanted, and just that would have been enough, right? Anyway, that was the beginning of the end. Does anybody know that DC actually tried to sell itself to Marvel because they didn't want to go bankrupt? That happened. And Marvel didn't buy them. They're like, you're going to be okay. Marvel has always had a lot of reverence and deference to DC, and I've always appreciated that about Marvel. You know, I can only imagine if Batman were written by Marvel at this point. Maybe, but maybe not. Anyway, I saw that Marvel was still doing the same old practices, multiple variant covers, because it worked once. Let's do some more. Holographic cover, it worked. The foil cover, it worked. Let's inundate the world with like a Luke Cage book with a foil cover. Are you drunk? The trading cards. Hey, the 1992 series, that was great, man. I loved it. Then we get a new one every year. Then it turned out it wasn't just every year. They kept sending them to us multiple times, 3 times a year, sometimes more, maybe more, and just throwing garbage at us. Just paint something up. And then the creation of, the cause of the creation of Image Comics. When they turn around, they started telling people like Liefeld and all these guys, you know, hey man, McFarlane, that's the name I was trying to remember, trying to tell these guys, hey man, you know what I'm saying? You want a raise? Psst, why would I give you a raise? You know, Spider-Man sells itself. We could put anybody on the Spider-Man title. Wow. So how'd that work out for you, Marvel? Oh, you wind up selling your stuff, you know, having Image do your comics for you anyway. And we had Captain America with the, you know what I'm talking about. And then Marvel went bankrupt and had to sell off the movie rights to their characters. Something that we're still technically suffering with whatever. I'm not going to get into that, but we're still kind of suffering with, you know what I'm saying, at the time with certain characters and distribution rights for others. So, oh, for crying out loud, man. Marvel's practices drove it bankrupt. Can you imagine that? A company like Marvel drove itself bankrupt and had to sell off its assets to survive. That's reprehensible. So Marvel has always done stuff like this, and they're still not learning their lesson. They're still not learning. How many times have they reboot? They see that DC's reboots always work. You know what I'm saying? Even with the New 52, which most of us hated, the majority of it. Certain things were cool, like Batman with the Court of Owls, and I loved Cyborg's introduction in the his own comic in the New 52. That was great. I wish Rebirth was as good. Probably wouldn't have canceled. That being said, there were a couple of really good titles for New 52, but most of them were horrible. You know, you had some great storylines, and because they rushed into it. You know what I'm saying? And there's the story behind that with Jeff Johns. He even said, don't reboot the entire. This was just a Flash story. I'm writing a Flash story. Flashpoint was just a Flash story. Don't turn around and reboot the whole universe with it. No, it's a perfect time to do it. So it was rushed, and nothing that's rushed is done well. Nothing. So yeah, Marvel wind up still like with the legacy and the for crying out loud, DC did the lenticular covers. I went and got Jason Fabok to sign all 4 of the button lenticular covers that I got, and the 2 Batmans and the 2 Flashes. And what happened? Marvel all of a sudden says, "Whoa, people like that. Let's make lenticular covers for all of our comics." And it's like, who needs that? Who asked for that, man? This was something special. It was supposed to show something cool, man. And you turn around and you like blast us with all these. Like, I'm not buying all of these. I'm not buying all of these. And they're still to this day sitting on the shelves of these comic book retailers, man. Love you, Marvel. But you're like a bad dad who beats me right now, man. It's just... You're beating me with these horrible guerrilla marketing techniques, dude. So I told you that my marketing knowledge was going to come in handy all throughout this. So what happens? I was in Saudi Arabia and I was teaching in the 3rd grade at the time that this happened. The Ultimate Warrior had just died around this time, and it was like huge on my mind. I was in the teacher's room like, oh my God, the Ultimate Warrior just died. He just came back. They finally made peace, man. And yeah, everything. And what happened? And then all of a sudden they also start saying, hey, we're going to reboot Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel is going to become Captain Marvel. And we're going to have this Muslim teenager girl, and she's going to be the new Captain Marvel. I remember looking at that like, I don't know if that's going to work. You know what I'm saying? But I also remember wondering if Heath Ledger was going to work for, you know, The Dark Knight. So, you know, I could be surprised. You know what I'm saying? And, yeah, I was indeed surprised. It wound up working. And I remember, it's funny because I told a bunch of people this, you know, diehard Muslims and like really, you know, like American Muslims, natural-born Muslims, whatever you'd call them, you know what I'm saying? So converts or reverts and whatever. And Most of them are just like, this is just a ploy. This is just a technique. I'm like, well, the person who came up with the idea, this Amanda Sennett girl, she turns out that she's actually a Muslim herself, and G. Willow Wilson's going to be writing this, and turns out she's actually a convert. So, you know, like that, it could work. I'm like, it's just a way to try and make money off of us. Maybe. What's the population of Muslims in America? Not a lot, right? So, and we don't even get comic books over here for the most part. Like, they cost too much because the shipping, you know what I'm saying? Diamond Distributors doesn't deliver to Saudi Arabia. They have to get them like across borders and things like that, probably from the UAE. So, yeah, just no. I just don't believe that's the case. So, anyway, whatever. And at the same time, I'd also learned that Jane Foster was going to be... Well, not Jane Foster was going to become Thor, but that a woman was going to be Thor. Thor was now going to be a woman. I'm like, how are they going to do that? You know what I'm saying? It turns out it was Jane Foster. We found out years later. So all this, like, I just don't know if this is going to work. But then everybody's like, dude, Thor is actually really good. So, and that was pre-planned long in advance. So... when all of a sudden they hit us with those two and it worked, I guess that if I understood hindsight, you know, at the time, and I would have known, I know what Marvel does, and I just would have kept my eyes open, I'd have known that Marvel would have looked at it and be like, we did something that worked. Flood the market! And flood the market they did, man. See, that's the thing. Miss Marvel worked. For all the people who are going to sit there and say Miss Marvel didn't work or Miss Marvel's stupid, whatever, you are in the minority. You are in the corner of the room, not even at the kiddie table at Thanksgiving. No, you are in the minority in the corner of the room with the dunce cap on because everybody else is disagreeing with you vehemently. Okay? Deal with it, brother. It's okay to be wrong. It's not okay to still sit there, you know, with your thumb in your mouth going, no, I refuse to admit that I was wrong. You could still dislike it, but sorry, Miss Marvel is here to stay. Kamala Khan is here to stay. And Thor, Jane Foster, she was beloved, man. She was beloved, so you can hate on it all you want. I don't know what to tell you, but it worked. What didn't work is every single other thing that they threw at us, and some of those things were good. Some of those things were good, okay? It took forever for Miles Morales to work, but eventually it worked. And there's still enough haters on there where it's like, dude, give it up already, but they won't. And it's hard to argue. Whatever, man. Whatever. Stick by your guns, I guess. But there were casualties in here that didn't even deserve to be casualties. Like, I know they keep on saying, like, SJW, Marvel, and, you know, all their SJW characters. One character that wasn't SJW was Mosaic, and I did a Mosaic Explained in a Minute story. Excuse me, like it took a little longer than a minute, whatever, and I explained Mosaic, and I read all of the issues, and it was really good. There were some boring parts in the middle, but you know, the creators got in touch with me when they saw it, and like in multiple formats. Some of one of the creators, Carrie, he actually got in touch with me on multiple platforms in case I didn't see it on another one. And he's just like, dude, thank you so much for this. You know, like, this is really good. This is a great homage. And it makes me, you know, happy to know that at least somebody out there saw and recognized Mosaic. Mosaic was a really good character. He didn't get a whole lot of attention because he didn't have somebody else's identity. He didn't have somebody else's name. You know, he wasn't Spider-Man. He wasn't, you know, Captain America. He wasn't this, that, or the other thing. He was just Mosaic, and nobody knew Mosaic, and nobody wanted to give him a shot. So he got up to, like, what, 8 issues, if I remember correctly. Is what it is, man, but, like, that's what it is. So in cases like Mosaic, I understand what Marvel's saying. Hey, man, we're just trying to give them a boost. We're trying to give them a heads up. Now, I understand the concept of pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and I've seen people talking about how the characters didn't earn this, that, or the other thing. But, look, I get the idea of the hero's journey. But not everything comes up through the hero's journey. Okay, just because Joseph Campbell, you know, had this concept and people have recognized that it's amazing in the Star Wars George Lucas thing, and I know all that stuff, dude. I do. But that's not always how every story becomes great. You know, it's just not. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes sometimes it's something else, you know? What do you call it? Sometimes we don't always overcome our problems. Somebody, I'm trying to quote somebody, and I didn't take down the name because I don't, not because I'm trying to steal credit from the person. One of the people who were talking about Comicsgate in a video, and I don't want to mention anybody's name because I don't want to insult anybody if I took something out of context or if I say something that may seem derogatory. I don't care if you're a big-time YouTuber, the leader of these YouTubers, or the bottom of them, or anywhere in between, all right? But people, comic book characters, or us, we are defined by our problems. These comic book characters are defined, see, I already messed it up. These comic book characters, these SJW comic book characters, are defined by their problems, not by their ability to overcome them. Okay. Has anybody seen Braveheart? Braveheart, Mel Gibson's character, he didn't overcome his problems. He died. And history is written by the conqueror. You know what I'm saying? There are a whole bunch of great heroes in the Native American lore. You know what I'm saying? Chief Sitting Bull, what do you call it? Just a whole bunch. You know what I'm saying? And what happened, like, I'm actually part Cherokee myself, you know what I'm saying? So there were actually heroes in the Trail of Tears, but all you'll ever hear from American history teachers is, oh yeah, they were moved from here to there, to there, to there, to there, and then eventually scattered all over the place, and eventually they all died. They didn't all die. I'm still here, you know what I'm saying? So, what do you call it? And I'm mostly Sicilian, but that's where I get all my sexiness from. But the point is, you know what I'm saying? What do you call it? Not everybody is defined by the hero's journey. Some people, they die, or their characters die, or there's something there. There's something else there. You know what I'm saying? Their peoples die, and they're like the last of their kind and whatnot. Martian Manhunter is somebody who is defined by his problems. I don't think he's ever overcome anything. He just hasn't committed suicide. You know what I'm saying? He's constantly got problems, and that's what he's defined by. He's way lonelier than Superman is. Superman's always, I'm the last person here. There are plenty of Kryptonians still around. In fact, there's also the Daxamites that are descendant of Kryptonians. You're constantly going back in the past and seeing you got to have a conversation with your parents. Turns out your dad's actually still alive now anyway. And, the Mr. Oz, the Oz effect, and just all these different things. Like, dude, shut up. Stop talking about you're alone. You got a kid, and you got, like, all these things around you. And Martian Manhunter's still over here talking about, dude, I don't even look like any of you people unless I shape change. You know what I'm saying? Like, this guy is purely defined by his problems, yet we love him. So, can you see the argument on both sides? That, in fact, some people are defined by their problems, okay? Now, I get when you're saying somebody like, America. I never got into America, and the only real exposure I have to America is, I never read her solo series, but she was in the Ultimates 2, and I read and reviewed the Ultimates 2 on my channel, and yeah, I didn't get her character at all. I didn't get it, so I didn't get into it. You know what I'm saying? I was like, whatever. I just, you know what I'm saying? Bye. And all the screaming and crying and decrying didn't, I don't think, at least, it rushed anybody's decision to stop buying the comic book. I don't think that was the case at all. In fact, if anything, it probably prolonged the life, because that was the character who they decried about the most, but the sales were ridiculously low. I think lower than, not Nightwatch, I can't remember his name, but like, some of the other comic books that are out there, some of the comic books, that only made it to 6 issues and then were canceled, A lot more people liked Robbie Reyes's Ghost Rider than they liked America. Yet somehow, Robbie Reyes's Ghost Rider was canceled twice. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was a volume 2 and that was canceled before America was canceled. And they both did better sales than America did, from my understanding. And how do we explain that? Because people today double down. Okay, I want you to look at President Trump, man. When Trump does something and people make fun of him, and I make fun of him. I'm going to make fun of whoever's the sitting president. You know what I'm saying? You know who I made fun of before I made fun of Trump? Obama. You know, just like it was perfect. He's there, and like that's what he's there for. He's there for that satirical humor. You know what I'm saying? But I absolutely make fun of Trump. He is dumb. You know what I'm saying? And I'm from Jersey, man. The first time I heard of Trump was when I was 14. So I want you to think about that. You know what I'm saying? 42 now. So we're talking about, 30 years, 28 years I knew about Donald Trump. And just, remember I said, I can't believe that Marvel went bankrupt. You know what I'm saying? A company like Marvel. Donald Trump, who's got a trust fund where he makes more than Marvel, and he went bankrupt 6 times. Oh, I'm going to make fun of this guy. A guy who dodged the draft 5 times. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I'm going to make fun of this guy. You know what I'm saying? But like when push comes to shove, when you make fun of Donald Trump, what does he do? He doubles down on it. Everybody's making fun of him for saying big league. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh yeah, big league, big league, big league. He's saying big league. You know what I'm saying? So what does he do? He doubles down. He says it even more. You know what I'm saying? When you sit there and start, attacking Trump, that's a thing. People think very binary. So when people, myself included, when we sit there and say, dude, don't vote for Trump because Trump's an idiot and he's just an idiot. I knew that he was a racist beforehand, but I can't say that I knew that he was going to do the things that he's doing, like the Muslim ban. He called it a Muslim ban. Look at his campaign run. You know what I'm saying? And all these crazy things that he did. You know, so like my wife is a Canadian. There's a reason why I, an American citizen, am living here in Canada. I'm living in Canada. I'm living in Canada. You know what I'm saying? Because I know how hard it's going to be for my wife to get American citizenship. You know what I'm saying? So it's easier for me to get citizenship here than it is for her to get citizenship there. We looked at the process, and yeah, and there is a reason why. His name is Donald Trump. So a military veteran, and I don't feel like I can live in America anymore because my wife and my kids were going to, well, not my kids, but my wife at least, is going to have a hard time. You know what I'm saying? The mother of my children, for crying out loud. Like, that's just ridiculous, dude. That's ridiculous. So... So all of that considered, yeah, I'm going to make fun of this dude. But when people, but when I make fun of him, people are like, oh, well, what about if Hillary would have gotten in? And I'm sitting here laughing to myself. I was like, Hillary? Are you kidding me? I prefer Trump over Hillary in every way, shape, and form. You know why? Because he's just stupid enough to make sure that we all see everything that he's doing. Hillary is way smarter, way smarter. And she would have been very deceitful, okay, with everything that she would have done. And we wouldn't have seen half of what she was doing. Trump's an open book because he's an idiot. All of the stuff with Wall Street and with rich people getting their tax breaks and the bailouts and everything and all these big companies getting what they want, okay, it would have been done with Hillary too. The trick is Hillary would have been very debaucherous about it. And it would have been, like, oh, I'm going to hire this person who will work in the favor of, Exxon Valdez, so Exxon Mobil, you know what I'm saying? Exxon Mobil. And Trump turns around, he's just like, I'll just hire the CEO of Exxon. Psh, why just cut out the middleman? It's like, oh my God, this horrible businessman thinks that he understands business and thinks he's actually like, you freaking idiot. Oh, thank God for Donald Trump doing this thing, because you know what? We would have just been stuck in more nonsense if that was the case. So, and why do I bring this stuff up in the first place? Because I see the bigger YouTube channels who sprung out of nowhere as far as, like, I've been around longer than a lot of these guys. I made the mistake of only talking about comic books, I guess, and I'm going to continue making that mistake because the reason why I'm doing this video is so that I can simply point to this video anytime somebody asks me, what do you think about Comicsgate or this or that or the other thing? I can just say, oh, I did a video on that, it's over here. I don't really want to talk about it anymore. Literally, like, this is all I want to talk about. In this, I want to get back to talking about my comic books. So it's one of the reasons why this video is going to be very long. Wow, looks like it's going to be about an hour and a half by now. Anyway, come back after you had your coffee if you need. But anyway, so yeah, every time that you make fun of Donald Trump, his supporters turn around and they double down. They're like, oh, it's taking off the Hillary supporters? Cool! And it's like, no, we're not. I'm not a Hillary supporter. Do you think... And like the mistakes are being made. I see a lot of these guys talking about, well, the progressives, you know, saying if they would have had Hillary in, whoa, this is what I'm talking about, just not paying attention. Hillary, a progressive? No, she's the establishment. You know what I'm saying? No, she's not a progressive. Bernie Sanders is the progressive. You know what I'm saying? And most people would have voted for Bernie, and that was my guy. You know what I'm saying? I would have loved if Bernie would have gotten in. Now, there's still a bunch of things that I don't like about it. I prefer a more libertarian way of looking at things. Like, if Jesse Ventura would have run, that would have been great. You know what I'm saying? And even Jesse was fooled by Donald, and he knows Donald personally. You know what I'm saying? And he was thinking Donald Trump would have, he was talking about it on his YouTube channel for the longest time. Now he's insulting Donald Trump because he's like, you see the nonsense that Trump is doing? But that's the thing. Donald Trump is really good at reading an audience and giving us what we want, you know, telling us what we want to hear. I was even saying, I don't even know what Hillary stands for at this point. You know what I'm saying? But I know what Trump stands for. Or at least I know what he's saying he stands for. And I know he doesn't mean half of this stuff. I don't know what he does mean, but I know that. But still, you insult this guy and everybody's just thinking, you know, oh, he's going to help us out. Boom, we're good. So that's one of the reasons why so many people think that they're Republicans, think that these people who support Comicsgate are Republicans because they're saying, you know, oh, you're just mad that Donald Trump got into office. How? What? What? It doesn't affect me. Well, it kind of does, but like, are you kidding me? No. No, I don't want either of them in office. You know, because your person didn't win. Yeah, my person didn't win, but I don't see what that has to do with me reading comic books and not calling people names. So I know that some people in the comics professionals, I'm trying to use the proper terminology here, the comics professionals, most of them are just, like they're being childish or they're being whatever and they're not taking criticism. The thing is, you do understand there's a difference between criticism and flat out being a jerk, right? And when people, and that includes for this video, when I read the first couple of lines of a comment, I'm right away, my judgment factor is going on. And I don't need somebody to be like, dude, your channel is awesome and blah, blah, blah. I appreciate when people say that. I absolutely do. And thank you very much when you say that. But I don't need somebody to, wax my back. You know what I'm saying? I'm not that hairy to begin with. But I don't need somebody to wax my back or something like that or rub my shoulders in order to give me criticism. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, if you're going to start throwing, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about, you're stupid. No, I'm not. I'm not stupid. In fact, chances are, at 42 years old, electrical engineer and international business marketer and a professor at a university, Junior, you little freaking 12-year-old, there's a good chance I'm about 50 times smarter than you and your family because they're the idiots who raised you. You don't know how to talk to a human being. So none of that's ever going to impress me. None of that's ever going to get under my skin. It's literally like I look at it, I'm like, I clearly don't have to read the rest of this. I don't need to respond to this. None of this, And sometimes, to be funny, I'll write all the way at the bottom if I want to get an extra comment out of them and just to really tick them off. If I want to troll them back, I'll write at the bottom, hey, saw your first 2 sentences and realized that I don't want to read your nonsense, so I hope this was good therapy for you. You know what I'm saying? Send. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes that's fun. But for the most part, I just ignore it. I'm like, yeah, okay, good. And I'll think and I literally every single time think to myself, hope that was good therapy for you. Anyway, learn how to talk to a human being and then move on. You know what I'm saying? But I've had plenty of times where somebody is very critical with me, but they're not insulting, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not going to get insulted. Even if somebody calls me like a mother effer or something like that, it's like, okay, but it's kind of late for you to be trying to charge me child support, right? Because I'm not going to let that stuff get under my skin. Anybody who even, forget about just being in the military, just if you went through basic training and passed, even if you didn't finish, you know what I'm saying, your AIT, your MOS, you know what I'm saying? If you just went through basic training, bud, there's a good chance that you have had the situation where you got 4 drill sergeants lined up around you and they're questioning your sexuality, they're questioning your intelligence, they're disrespecting your mother and your father. They're doing everything they can to get under your skin to see if you're going to break. And the people who break, they're gone. You know what I'm saying? But the people who stayed, it's like clearly you understand that insults don't actually mean anything. The trick is you still don't want to sit around while somebody's sitting there, you know, they think they're waxing poetic, and in reality, they're just a bunch of blathering idiots. You know what I'm saying? And that's a good portion of the problem. Look, it's a very well-known statement that we are known by the people who we associate with. So, here's the thing. If the top of the echelon of, this is where I'm going to start getting into the criticism of Comicsgate and what they can do about it. I understand what Comicsgate is trying to do. What do I say about this? What they're trying to do? Okay, yes, what they're trying to do. They're trying to get Marvel to start writing better stories. Stories where there are heroes' journeys, or at least there's something there where it's actually a good story and it's not the idea of, oh, I'm a minority, therefore, excuse me. Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes that's simply not a good thing. You know what I'm saying? Something like that can work once in a while. The problem is Marvel's typical forte is, oh, this worked once, flood the market. And that's not going to work. Telling fans, you know, oh, you're a racist because you're saying something racist. This is exactly like Comicsgate, you know, anybody on the Comicsgate side saying, oh, you're, well, shoot. You like this comic book, you must be an SJW. No, an SJW is clearly pejorative in this regard, right? So then what happens? You insult somebody who does believe in social justice. They're not going to try and stand on a pedestal or anything like that, but they will absolutely, like if they see, you know, let's just be really stupid. If they see somebody, you know, like in a white hood beating up on a black guy, they're going to run over and, you know, like, stop, this is wrong. That person's not an SJW. That person's looking out for a fellow human being. You know what I'm saying? But somebody who's willing to do something like that, the person who proverbially will give the shirt off his back, will hear the word SJW, see the literal meaning, not the figurative meaning, not the implied meaning. Okay, they will see the literal meaning by looking at the words social justice warrior. It sounds like someone who's going to stand up for a minority. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, they're going to be offended also when it wasn't actually coming towards them. So then what are they going to do? There's going to be some clap back in that regard. And they're going to turn around, they're going to call you a racist. You know what I'm saying? And then you're going to turn around and be like, what? I'm not a racist. I have black friends. Cool. So if you're a sexist and you get married to a woman, are you no longer a sexist? So that can still work. Sorry. It's called logic. It's called thinking a thought all the way through. So obviously that's going to be said, and then people who understand exactly what I just said, and it's going to be an escalation. Cops have guns. You know what I'm saying? In America. And look, it works in England where the cops, the bobbies, where the cops don't have guns. And they're good. You know what I'm saying? They don't have nearly the levels of crime or shooting or cop deaths or anything like that. And sorry, like it's not an anti-American thing to say something's working better in another country. No, it's what? It's working better over there. Well, then we could beat that. You know what I'm saying? No. So what I'm saying is cops in America carry guns. So now the criminals want to carry guns. Because if you want to be a bad guy, you're going to find a way to be a bad guy. Right? And it's the logic that's used. So they get guns. So now cops get bulletproof vests, and so now the criminals get the hollow tips or the Teflon bullets. You know what I'm saying? And now cops get military grade weapons. Without the military training that I had on these weapons, they get these weapons, and it's like. So now what are they going to get? You know what I'm saying? Like it's going to, terrorism. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not going to end. It's called escalation. And as it stands, it seems like cops don't know how to de-escalate anymore. Heck, human beings don't know how to de-escalate anymore. You know what I'm saying? Just if somebody gets hot, you know, where's the voice of reason? That would probably be me. And I'm sure there are plenty of other people out there, but I usually see people who are just taking sides. I see the logic in both sides. I see the logic of somebody like Mark Waid wanting to say, dude, it's about diversity. And he's not wrong. Where he's wrong is when he starts acting like, somebody tell me where this guy is. I'm going to go and knock him out, man. Why would you do that? Exactly. Are we back to the whole, is it okay to punch a Nazi thing? Like, come on, man. Come on. Once you resort to violence, you lost. And if you're trying to provoke somebody into violence, tell me something. Isn't that what they tried to do with Martin Luther King Jr.? So, but then you see on the other side, the comic book fans who are associating themselves with Comicsgate, they start doing the same kind of thing. And it's a typical thing on both sides, and on the political aspect also, where you'll attack somebody, and then as soon as they attack you back, oh, they just attacked me. I had somebody who sat there and they attacked me, and blah, 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 did this and that and the other. And I don't consider it an attack. If you don't have a weapon in your hand, then it's not an attack. It's, it's trolling, saying, and I'm not scared of trolls. So if I get, some knucklehead, like this one time, he's like, you guys are idiots for liking this, and you're all stupid, and, if you keep on liking this stuff, they're going to keep on writing this stuff. Well, we hope they keep writing this stuff because it's actually good. Are you actually reading this? Like, shut up, please. Like, I think you're so I'm trying to talk nice, and I was like, listen, I actually chose to try and see if I could talk reason to this guy. Nope, big mistake. Like, listen, man, I kind of understand what you're saying, but the way that you're saying it with the insults, it's not productive, and nobody's going to listen to you like this. So I hear what you're saying, but we actually like the comic because such and such and such, all these reasons. It's like, well, that's stupid, you're all idiots, blah, blah. It's like, okay, if you're going to continue with this nonsense, I'm not interested in pursuing the conversation with you. You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, that's just because you're an idiot, and blah, 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 blah. Not an idiot. Your words, they don't apply to me, so they don't stick to me. You know what I'm saying? Honestly, like, maybe it's how you feel about yourself, and those words hurt you, so you try to throw them my way because, yeah. It's usually the guy without a job who calls other people losers, right? And all sorts of things like that. It's usually the people who question their own sexuality that attack people for their sexuality. And let's be realistic, it's usually the guys who can't get laid who are yelling at women to control themselves. People like me who had plenty of girlfriends, I don't want women to control themselves. I want women to do what they want to do, because otherwise I can't do what I want to do. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's just, it is what it is, man. It is what it is. I'm married now. I'm a good guy, in case my wife decides to look at this video. So, what do you call it? When you have this clapback on both sides, back and forth, it's the escalation. It's not getting anywhere with anybody. So again, this goes back to the original thing I was talking about. When you're so far right that people who are in the middle look like they're on the far left. Likewise, if you're on the far left, it works both ways, man. It's a rubber band effect. You know what I'm saying? Inertia, it's a hell of a thing. It's a hell of a drug. So here's my suggestion. Here's how I suggest to try and fix this problem. Homophobic statements, they're simply not going to work. Okay? I understand some of the things that the comics professionals that like Mags Visagio would say, okay? She identifies as a she. I don't have a problem with calling her a she. You know what I'm saying? If somebody tells me their name is Jonathan and I say, nah, you look like a Frank, that doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? If somebody wants to be called a she, what's the big deal with calling him a she? What's the problem? It doesn't hurt me. It doesn't change anything. You know what I'm saying? So I don't see a problem with it. Personally, I don't see a problem with it. And men and women use each other's bathrooms all the time. The only problem where that ever should be considered a problem is in huge public places. But a lot of those huge public places, like clubs, they're in there anyway. And they are doing it with each other. I've seen it. Okay, so those were my younger years. That was before I got married, in case my wife is watching this video. So anyway, I just like cracking jokes. So my recommendations are, honestly, when you make fun of people like this, or you use things, that this goes back to the whole reason why I talk about hate speech in the first place. If you're going to use hate speech, you got to understand people are going to say that you're a racist. People are going to say you're a homophobe. People are going to say you're a transphobe, because everybody's going to use the words that you say to try and determine your intent. It's all going full circle. You know what I'm saying? I said these things for a reason, all right? All of this is about accountability, and you can't have accountability if people aren't taking responsibility. Now, Marvel should be using a proper business practice. This is why I emphasize several times that I work in business. Marvel should be using proper business protocol, and this doesn't even need to involve etiquette. Okay, as the owner of a company, I would not be cool with any of the people who I work with making a race, or who, especially who work for me, making a racist statement, or a homophobic or a transphobic statement, or a sexist or misogynistic statement. I would not be cool with this. Why? Because it represents my company, and you, son, are gone. Good, good luck in all your future endeavors. I will literally future endeavor you. You know what I'm saying? Now, Marvel employees understand this. So you turn this around, and the Comicsgate people, who, there are going to be trolls on both sides, but the Comicsgate people usually don't have to work on the same playing field. Someone like Ethan Van Shriver, I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong, he will have to work under that premise, because he works for the company. He works for DC, and if he wants to do certain freelance work and all this, and still make himself accessible, still wants the businesses that he wants to work for, wants them to be accessible, he has to be careful with the things that he says also, which is probably why he refers to his followers so often, because he knows that they don't have to be couth. Now, if Marvel could find out where these people work, they could go and get them fired, which I think is a really disgusting thing. It's a really disgusting thing to do. You know what I'm saying? I was reading a Quran one time when I was working for a marketing firm, and I always kept to myself. Which, if any of them found out I was, so public with everything that I do on YouTube, they'd be like, "Bill, really? Him? Yeah." Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I kept my head down and I just worked. That was my work ethic, you know what I'm saying? When I'm sitting here and I was just reading Quran, I didn't realize that people actually thought that I was a diehard Muslim, and the idea that, oh man, this guy might be a terrorist, or, and this is long before the ISIL or any of that stuff was ever mentioned. This is long before any of that stuff was ever, a whimsy in people's imaginations. So I went to grab my drink, and this woman who was sitting across from me, who's also Italian, mind you, which is funny, and I guess the beard and all that stuff and reading a Quran, I guess that instantly makes me, a person of interest, let's say. Anyway, so I guess it wouldn't help if they knew that I spoke Arabic. You know what I'm saying? I'm just interested in, I've read the Bhagavad Gita. I've read all of the Mahabharata, for crying out loud. That doesn't make me a Hindu. You know what I'm saying? I've read the Bible 5 times cover to cover, and the New Testament alone an extra 2 times, and all different versions of the Bible. I've read the Lotus Sutra. That doesn't make me a Buddhist. You know what I'm saying? I've read lots of different things. It doesn't make me anything. It makes me someone who's interested. You know what I'm saying? Someone who just wants to learn more. That's it. So I went to grab my drink. She put her drink right next to mine, and I could have sworn it was mine. I could have sworn she swears it wasn't. I still think it was my drink. I literally just I don't want to drink anything now, because it was the one that was closest to me. I could have sworn. Anyway, that being said, took a drink, and she was sure that I took hers for some reason, and she says, I can't drink that now. You just put your filthy Muslim lips on it. So this is immediately classified as hate speech. Now, I kind of looked at it. I wasn't insulted. I'm not going to take offense to something that, likewise, it doesn't apply to me. You know what I'm saying? So when she says this, I was just surprised. Like, you actually just... Most people are smart enough to keep those racial thoughts to themselves, but I guess this was so long after 9/11, it was easy to say something like that anyway. I let it go. But then I got called into the manager's office within 10 minutes because the people who were around me weren't okay with that. You can call them social justice warriors if you want, but they were people who understand that there are minorities who can't speak up for themselves, and they or who are afraid to speak up to themselves. They're afraid of the clap back there. You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, if they're all in on it, then, you know what I'm saying? So, and I'm going to get more on that in a second. And they said, you know, oh man, like, you know, they just said this to you. I can't believe it. I was like, well, I don't actually care. It doesn't apply to me. And that's when all of a sudden people started to realize I was just reading the lousy book. You know what I'm saying? What's the big deal? So they completely freak out. Anyway, they're like, well, what do you want us to do to her? Because, you know, she just, you know, attacked you like this. She just said a clearly racist statement. We do not want that to reflect on our company. So what would you, you know, because they're afraid that I'm going to turn around and make this into a big lawsuit. And I didn't say anything about it because I'm just like, if you're a scumbag, you're a scumbag. And yeah, if you say things like that and you believe something like that, you believe that all people are like that, the only thing you're proving that you're like that. And I'm going to give you an example. Sigmund Freud, okay, for as intelligent as he was, said that all men want to marry their mother and kill their father. And he said something similar for women, okay? So with the Oedipus complex, let me ask you a question. Do all of you want to do something like that? Because I don't. That's not a joke. That's not exaggeration. That's not a cover-up. No, I have no interest in something like that. So when he said that, do you know the only thing that he proved? He proved that he was interested in his mother, and he was not particularly fond of his father. That's all that proved. What he said, his statement, that's all that proved. That's what happens when you think a thought all the way through. So yeah, if you think something like that, like if you're just joking around with your Muslim friend, that's one thing. But if you say it to someone who you're not a friend with, even if it's okay, like, you know, hey, if you're a white guy or you're not a black guy and you say the N-word amongst your friends, okay, and your friends could be black, you know what I'm saying? And if they're okay with it, that's one thing. But you can't just go up to someone who you're not inundated with, who you're not in a close friendship with, and use that word, because now all of a sudden they're going to perceive you like, what is reality? Reality is our individual perception. So there's 7.5 billion realities out there, because that's how many people there are, and it's all perception. You know what I'm saying? So when she said something like this, she's a scumbag, and I figured her pain, her punishment is having to live with herself. You know what I'm saying? That she's so filled with hatred over something that she doesn't even understand. She probably doesn't have the faculties to understand, to even ask a question. Wow, this is a long one. Phone storage just filled up again. Okay, anyway. So I'm going to put the whole thing up because whatever, watch what you want. Anyway, yeah, she was so filled with hate that is her punishment. You know what I'm saying? Just living with herself. That's the one reality she can't escape. You know what I'm saying? It's called the egocentrical predicament. You're stuck with yourself. No matter where you look, you are the center of your own world. And that's with all of us. You know what I'm saying? The egocentrical illusion is thinking that you actually matter. Because we don't. As individuals, none of us really do. So, you know, when I was asked, what do you want her punishment to be? I was like, nothing. If I punish her, first off, she's probably never going to believe that I don't believe or that I do believe in whatever I believe or whatever anyway. She's not going to get it. You know what I'm saying? She's going to believe whatever she wants to believe. I'm not going to change her mind. And if I get her fired, you know what I'm saying? What's she going to think anyway? Her hatred's probably just going to increase. You know what I'm saying? There's also the chance that if I let her go, she's going to get confident and think, oh, I can do whatever I want to do. But I think that as long as you threaten and say the only reason why we're not firing you and no good recommendation or anything is because Bill said he's not interested in pursuing any actions against you. You know what I'm saying? But you better really think about that. And that's exactly what they did with her. And she was still mean to me for a long time, even though even though the rumors started to finally abate that, you know, maybe I wasn't some kind of a Muslim infiltrator or something like really, dude? Really? I'm Italian. You know what I'm saying? So, anyway, just, it is what it is, man. And people are going to be what they want to be. But while Marvel has a mission statement that they have to abide by, and finally, people, I think, are starting to be reined in. I just noticed recently that Dan Slott's not even on Twitter anymore, which is like, maybe it's a good thing for him, you know? Just like, change your name. Change your name. Don't take questions by Twitter anymore. And just, you know, like just, you know, talk about your politics that you like to talk about, but under an assumed name, I guess, you know? But like when you do it as you like that, like you're now a representative of your country, man, or your country, of your company, dude. So it is what it is. Yeah. Some of the people who spew the things they spew, yes, if their companies found out that they say these kind of things, they'd probably be fired too. Like I said, I would not want these people working under me. You know what I'm saying? I would not want these people working for me. I would absolutely fire these people. And the fact that I can't get in any kind of trouble for breach of freedom of speech proves that I would be in the right, proves that it is a lawful termination. So it is what it is, man. And you really have to think about that. When you act outside of the norms of the law, you have to consider you're not following the social cues that we put up. Sometimes people can't follow certain social cues, so we make laws instead. So when you break laws, now this is a serious punishment. So it all follows, and we live in a country of laws. If you don't agree with the law, that's a shame. You know what I'm saying? That's a shame. It is what it is, man. Slavery used to be a law. You know what I'm saying? Not so much a law, but it wasn't illegal. You know what I'm saying? There was no law against slavery, I should say. So, yeah. Like, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? I'm not justifying this, that, or the other thing. I'm saying your morals, if you're, Twitter isn't the way to try and fix your problems. You know what I'm saying? It's not through hate speech. And if your words can be classified as hate speech, this is not the way that things have to be, man. You have to let your conscience guide you, but you also have to act within the confines of the law. So, again, to make a point, slavery was always wrong, whether it was in the law or not. But if you tried to free a slave through an illegal means, like by taking someone else's, God, this is a painful word, someone else's property, you would go to jail for it. You had to try and find another way around it. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it took a war and an Emancipation Proclamation to get that to happen. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't even done for the right reasons. But again, it is what it is. So that's what it is. That's where we're at. So my recommendation to rein in what's being done, what the Comicsgate movement is trying to actually do, is instead of only making lists, because I understand the idea of making lists. Making lists can sound kind of nefarious, and it is. It also negates a huge point that they were trying to make in the first place. When Comicsgate says, oh, Marvel is not trying to tell a story, they're trying to force an agenda. I think that it's a good agenda that they're trying to force, if that's a word we're going to use, but I don't appreciate the way that they're doing it. Likewise, by saying they're trying to force an agenda, a list is an agenda. That is undoubtedly, you can't argue that. Sorry. You now, if ever you were going to sit there and try to say, no, we don't have an agenda, well, the list completely belies any argument, and they were weak arguments to begin with. They belie any kind of argument you were going to have about not having an agenda. You know what I'm saying? At the very least, your agenda was always to argue against their agenda. But that being said, here's what I recommend is to actually have your own mission statement. Okay? I don't think there's any need to register as a business, but you absolutely should treat it as a business. You need to treat Comicsgate as a business. And this is how and why. Have a mission statement. Marvel has a mission statement, and their employees have to be careful and navigate around that mission statement, or they're kicked out, right? Likewise, if Comicsgate has a mission statement, then all of the people within that movement, that organization, has to abide by that mission statement. If they don't, they're not actually a part of the movement anymore. And then they can be decried as falling outside of, and not by the people who are against the Comicsgate movement, but rather by the people within the Comicsgate movement. Listen, I'm trying to say things that will fall back in on themselves so everything come full circle. The main reason why I brought up police brutality or acting outside of the norms of the police twice is because a Black Lives Matter movement, which I fully believe in it. I don't think it's the best of names. I think saying Black Lives Matter also would be a much better term for it, but some people are going to have a problem with the name no matter what you call it, so there's that. But for other people, I even had a hard time with Black Lives Matter because I'm thinking to myself, well, it does say, and in the English language, like that's kind of what I do. So, yeah. But it took a while to actually understand what was going on so that, certain people, anyway, the Black Lives Matter movement can police itself. So if you do have, like, let's say the shooter that happened during a Black Lives Matter movement, well, there are going to be some people who, no matter what, hell or high water, they're going to say, oh, see, that was a Black Lives Matter. He said he was in Black Lives. But Black Lives Matter has a mission statement, and it states explicitly non-violence. Action through non-violence. Change through non-violence. It's repeated over and over again. It's in a written mission statement. So anybody who wants to sit there and say, you see that? No, I see you acting like a moron because you can't read their mission statement, which is openly available to everybody. Now, if the people within Black Lives Matter were to sit there and, like nudge each other and wink at each other, yeah, that's not cool. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, right? Then you can simply say, okay, the entire organization is a sham. But it's not. Because, or at least you can't prove that they are. It's just your word and your hatred or whatever, because they're abiding by their mission statement. Now, likewise, the best way to police the police is for the police to police themselves. The police have to say, listen, there is a problem. We don't have the proper training. Sitting with a guy who's been doing this longer, what if he's doing it the wrong way? You know what I'm saying? What if he just hasn't been caught? But now we're in the age of social media where people can catch us doing the things that this guy's teaching me to do. So maybe we shouldn't be doing these things anymore. Maybe we should have a police academy, an actual training, real, curriculum training. Wow. Wouldn't that be cool? You know what I'm saying? Wouldn't that just be cool? Likewise, Comicsgate can do the same thing. Now, here's the thing. The basis of what the Comicsgate movement started as, or the Movetheneedle movement started as, I agree. I agree. But it's the way that they go about it that I simply can't sign on as a member. I can't do that. Because people all over the place, including at the top, making trans statements, I don't believe in that. That's the reason why I can't call myself a Democrat or a Republican. Even though I have some conservative beliefs and some liberal beliefs, you know what I'm saying? I'm not an automaton. I'm not a robot. I'm not some kind of machine that can be programmed and told like this, like that. Here's a list. Follow this list. No, I won't. I absolutely won't. I'm going to judge for myself. That's what I do. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing to learn from other people's mistakes as opposed to learning from your own mistakes. I get that. But when you're, forewarning somebody about something, kind of sounds like an agenda, doesn't it? So, my suggestion is make a mission statement. And when that mission statement is made, police yourselves. So that if somebody is making, transphobic statements and things like that, that is not actually a part of the Comicsgate movement, is it? Because the creators, these comic book professionals, they say that it is. And they've got no reason to say nothing because it's coming right from the top, man. It's coming right from the top. So if we were to leave that stuff out, and I get it, a lot of it's just for entertainment, but, you know, if you're an entertainer, that's one thing. If you're a comedian, that's one thing. A comedian can get away with saying a whole lot of things that a lay person can't. You know what I'm saying? You have to identify yourself. So we can only go by your identifiers and the things that we identify as. Therefore, we can, again, determine intent. So if you're just some guy on YouTube and you're making, you know, transphobic statements all the time, brother, I hate to say this, but people have every single right to call you a transphobe. People have every single right in the world, and prove them wrong. You know what I'm saying? It goes against the intent of the movement. And if Comicsgate, Movetheneedle, whatever, was an actual business, a registered business where people are getting paid and where you've got to keep a certain identity, then the people at the top would be firing the people who were saying things like that. And if they weren't, you'd say, this is clearly what the business is all about. Treat what you're doing like a business. That is what gives you true legitimacy. That is the advice that I can give. Make a mission statement. Live by the mission statement. Police your own. And mistakes that have been made, own up to them. Don't double down. For the love of God, don't double down. Because you're never going to convince new people. You're only going to take the people who haven't heard of you yet but already believe in what you're saying. You're not actually going to convince people. And that includes people who are on the fence. Okay? People like me. None of us are going to join up when we have statements like this, you know what I'm saying, being said. So own up to it. An apology is kind of silly, but at least owning up to something and saying, hey, I wasn't saying it like this. I didn't mean it like that. It was simply meant as, and you know the routine, you know what I'm saying? And then just stick by that, man. Stick by that. Dude, suddenly I'm a sub. I'm a supporter. I'm there. You know what I'm saying? I'm there. I'm moving the needle with you. You know what I'm saying? But, yeah, if something goes against what I believe, then I can't be a member of that party. I can simply say, there's some things I agree with and some things that I don't. But I'm over here, and they're over there. You know what I'm saying? I have no problem walking alone. So, and there are a lot of people who are like that. So, this is a 40-year-long video. And if you stuck through the whole thing, you are a freaking champion. And there's no way you sat through the whole thing straight. I did, but there's no way you did. And if you did, you're impressive. Maybe you're stuck on a plane. Anyway, long commute. So, yeah, it is what it is, man. That is how I feel. That's the gist of, it's not a gist. That's the entirety of how I feel. If there are any questions, by all means, ask the questions. If you actually have a problem with anything I said, brother, I can assure you the problem is with you. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as a matter of fact. I'm not here to bash anybody unless you are actually a racist. Then I've got a problem with you. If you're any one of those phobes, I got a problem with you. I got a problem with that, at least, that aspect of you. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to associate with you because then I will be, you know, associated with that sort of mentality. So no, just, you know, own up, take responsibility, and then police your own in exactly that order, all right? And that starts with a mission statement. Treat this like a business and act like it's a full-on business where you want people to represent the mission statement so that there's no doubt. I don't care if somebody is, you know, a trans person or a gay person or this or that or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Then it's harder for people to call you a Nazi, which is a dumb statement to begin with unless you're actually wearing a swastika. But it is what it is, man. It is what it is. Either way, my recommendation stands. You know what I'm saying? And then I think you'll get a lot more people on your side, because that part of what you're saying is very valid. But then there are a lot of parts that you add in that are unnecessary. They don't contribute to your message, and they're going to drive people away. So, yeah. Anyway, Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.